Hi, you see that bulky guy? That's Mark. He was once a well-respected arm wrestler, but now there's nothing left of his former glory. But soon things are gonna change. Mark will embark on a journey that will change his whole life. A typical nightclub party. Mark the bouncer sees a brawl at the entrance and rushes to separate the clubgoers. He finds out that one of the brawlers is his friend, Jin-Ki. He's come to the United States from South Korea and asks an old friend for a favor: to perform in an arm wrestling match and take back the lost money wagered. Mark reluctantly agrees. The muscle man overcomes his opponent in 2 counts, but he doesn't agree with the outcome of the match. He wants to fight again. A mass brawl begins in the club. Mark fights against his own colleagues, and his friend stealthily leaves the club. In the end, he just shouts to the muscle man that he'll call him when he returns to South Korea. Mark is fired for the brawl. Now he works as a security guard and spends boring days in his booth. But one day, he receives an unexpected call from an unknown caller. It's Jin-Ki calling the old friend to an arm wrestling competition in South Korea. Mark, without thinking twice, packs his things up and goes to the airport. Back in Seoul, Jin-Ki offers to become colleagues with Mark. The muscle man wants to refuse, but his friend explains that it's impossible to build a sports career in South Korea without a manager. Mark thinks it over and decides to give it a try. Then, Jin-Ki shares his brilliant plan. He suggests that Mark participate in arm wrestling fights with bets. The strongman suspects this is a scam, but the manager assures him that this is just harmless business. The boys go for a walk around Seoul, and when they finally go home, Jin-Ki asks Mark an out-of-the-blue question.
아니, 입양 오고 나서 한 번도 엄마 찾고 싶은 생각이 없었어?
It turns out that Mark's never met his real family, but Jin-Ki has already planned everything in advance. In his friend's room, he left an unusual gift: a phone with the address of his biological mother. Instead, he went to track down Yu Chang-soo, a local mobster who runs local shopping arcades during the day and organizes betting competitions in the evenings. At first, the cheeky Yu Chang-soo doesn't take the young man's offer seriously, but that all changes when the mobster watches a video of Mark's recent fight. The sponsor agrees to their offer after all, but gives them a warning. They'll have to learn not only how to win, but also how to lose in order to keep working with them. Mark goes to his mother's house first thing the next day. There, he meets someone else but her. The children tell Mark that this is their grandmother's house. He decides not to go inside though. The brother and sister enter the apartment and directly rush to tell their mother that they have met a huge man on the street. They, however, do not yet suspect that this man is their uncle indeed. But his alleged sister, So-jin, sees the muscle man from the window and seems to instantly realize. Mark goes to meet Jin-Ki. Jin-Ki says that there are negotiations with an important sponsor ahead and they need to make a good impression. But Mark really doesn't like Yu Chang-soo's condescending manner. A fight almost breaks out between them, which is prevented by Jin-Ki's efforts at the last moment. Meanwhile, Mark's alleged sister is at work. It turns out she's the owner of her own shop in the shopping arcades of Yu Chang-soo and is in deep debt. There's one man on her team who says that today, he's gonna go place bets on the arm wrestling event. He points to the main favorite of the evening, Mark, who's standing right in front of the store.
미국에서 왔대요? 얼핏 들어보니까 그 입양하라던데.
Mark's first fight in South Korea begins. He effortlessly handles even those opponents who have so far remained undefeated. Yu Chang-soo is elated because he convinces a younger and more influential sponsor to invest in Mark's career. After a triumphant performance, Mark and Jin-Ki go on a vacation to a luxury hotel. The young man asks the sponsee if he has seen his mother. But Mark is a taciturn person, and he doesn't know how to put his emotions into words at all. Therefore, he simply tells his friend to forget about this matter forever. A few minutes later, Jin-Ki receives a message telling him to win the first match tomorrow, but lose the second. Soo-jin has her own problems at home. The children feel a constant lack of attention because she works at night. Sung-Joon-hyun has been asking his mom to buy sneakers for weeks and taking his younger sister, Joon-hee, to school. On one of these weekdays, the children again meet the unfamiliar muscle man near their home, but the responsible brother does not give in to curiosity and acts very adult-like.
이렇게 자꾸 오면 경찰에 신고할 거예요.
Yu Chang-soo's shrewd sponsor doesn't waste any time. He calls Combo, South Korea's strongest arm wrestler, and invites him to another competition as a spectator. Meanwhile, Jin-Ki casually tells Mark about the rules of today's competition. Unexpectedly, Mark doesn't even resist the request to lose the second match. Evening comes. This time, Mark's opponent is much stronger than the previous ones, but the American can still overcome the opponent in the first round. The second fight is about to begin, but suddenly, Mark's sponsor, his sister's boss, spots Soo-jin in the crowd. He starts questioning the girl about the debt and pestering her. Mark notices what's happening right before the start of the fight, and it seems that now it will be much more difficult for him to play along with the opponent. Mark's sponsors are infuriated, and Jin-Ki is also angry. Noticing the legendary combo in the crowd, he invites the audience to entertain themselves with the fight of the first South Korean arm wrestler and Mark. The latter refuses to fight though. He silently leaves the ring. Jin-Ki catches up with his partner and begs him to come back, but Mark doesn't even want to listen to him. Jin-Ki guesses that the change in the arm wrestler's plan is caused by the mysterious stranger from the crowd. He tracks down Mark's sister and shows up at her job's place to find out the truth, but he doesn't have time to hear the answers. Yu Chang-soo goes up to his domain with an entourage and intends to find Mark. However, it doesn't take much time. The police arrive at the scene of the mess. Yu Chang-soo plays victim and makes it seem like Mark attacked them. The arm wrestler finds himself in a police station, where Jin-Ki does his best to defend him. He tells the officers that Mark is a famous American wrestler and has come here to compete. But that's not enough. The police need to identify Mark at the US Embassy. There's only one problem. Mark is a foster child, and he's troubled with the documents. The desperate situation is saved by Soo Jin, who suddenly shows up at the police station with the children. The woman informs the officer that Mark is her mother's son. She shows her stepbrother's passport with his South Korean name and baby photos. According to Soo Jin, her mother became pregnant early and was unable to raise the child. But if Mark already was aware of all of this, he becomes shocked with one piece of news. His mother died from cancer last year. Now Soo Jin is already deceiving the police. According to her, Mark has come to South Korea to help her with the children, and that he had gotten into a fight with the men at the shopping arcade in her honor. Her story works, and the muscle man is reluctantly released. However, Mark is not particularly successful with communicating with his sister yet, so Jin-Ki takes the matters into his own hands and suggests they go visit Soo Jin and his nephews. That's where they wake up in the morning. The arm wrestler and his friend are surprised by the order in the house. The children are going to school on their own, and the mother sleeps in her room. When Soo Jin finally wakes up, she and her brother have an awkward conversation. After the conversation, Mark draws a disappointing conclusion. There's no success either because of the language barrier, or simply because he's not very good at wording his feelings. He supposes he's not welcome in the house. Mark is determined to leave, despite the begging of the children who have just returned from school. But near the house, he meets the errand boys of Yu Chang-soo, who have come to collect their sister's debt. The muscle man sees the new family cannot get by without his protection, and agrees to stay with his nephews. In the blink of an eye, the life of Soo Jin's family starts anew. Now the children no longer wander about by themselves, but spend time with their uncle. While the nephews are at school, Mark trains, and then takes care of them and entertains them. But most importantly, every day, the muscle man repels from the house Yu Chang-soo's insidious collectors, who attempt to skin his sister to the bone. However, Yu Chang-soo really needs money. He's discussing with his partner new ways to earn money at the upcoming National Arm Wrestling Championship. The sponsor says that he found a new star who will beat anyone, Punch. Now he serves his time in prison, and his strength scares all of his cellmates. And not long ago, he was Combo's teammate until he was caught using steroids and kicked out. Jin-Ki comes to Mark with good news. There's an option to go to the coastal town of Busan and participate in a small professional tournament. The children are simply delighted with the idea, so the arm wrestler does not refuse. The five of them go to the competition. It turns out that the opponent there is the same person, the Great Combo. No one can defeat him, but now it's the Americans' turn. As a winning prize, Mark and his companions get a fancy dinner and $1,000. All day long they have fun at the ocean front like a real family. Late in the evening, Soo Jin sees Mark sitting by the water alone and decides to talk to him. She admits that her mother dreamed of meeting him until her death, but sees that her brother is still hurt.
그럴 거면 왜 버려?
A TV documentary is released. Jin-Ki asks an acquaintance to film it. There, Mark's story is told from the very beginning. It turns out that his adoptive parents died early, and the children in the United States bullied him. That's why the guy wanted to become strong and start training. At one point, he almost became a national star, but once he was unfairly accused of rigging the results and was soon expelled from the league. But soon, he'll be able to prove to all South Koreans his worth. But for now, Mark continues to enjoy a measured family life, picking up the children from school, doing house cleaning, and in his spare time, he trains for the tournament and goes to the doctors to heal a sore hand. During one of these visits, Jin-Ki suddenly escapes, and Mark decides to follow him. So the arm wrestler learns that his friend has a father, with whom he does not talk, all because he was foolishly gone into debt and lost his wife. Jin-Ki admits that he's in a no less desperate situation than Mark, and he really needs money. After another family dinner, Mark goes to chat with his nephew, and is surprised at how fast the boy types. Jun-Hyun replies that he and his grandmother even held speed typing competitions, and one day he saw his grandmother writing an email to his uncle. Jin-Ki, meanwhile, makes one last attempt to negotiate with the sponsor before the competition, but Yu Chang-soo just laughs at his offer. He's already managed to get Punch out of prison, and now plans to put the loopy thug on the tournament. After everyone falls asleep, Mark opens his email and learns that his mother had been constantly texting him in recent years, and the shocking truth about the family he finds himself in. It turns out that Soo-jin isn't his sister at all. She's just a stranger girl that Mark's mom took in out of the goodness of her heart in her old age. The next day, all 5 of them go to see Mark's mother's ashes. On the way, the man asks if Soo-jin has anything to say to him. She pretends that she doesn't understand what he's talking about, but at the cemetery, Mark breaks down and asks her a direct question.
여기서는 울어도 돼. 나도 맨날 우는데 뭐.
왜 거짓말했어?
Soo-jin tries to explain that his mother has really become a part of her and her children's family, but Mark doesn't want to listen. He thought that after all these years, he finally found a real family, and all this turns out to be a hoax. Disappointed, the arm wrestler turns and walks away. Even Jin-Ki can't stop him. Conversely, Mark unleashes all of his anger on his friend and accuses him of selfish intentions. Now the muscle man is sure that he was never needed, except as a money-making machine. Mark is alone again. He continues to prepare for the championship. The children, meanwhile, really miss their uncle, who's not really their uncle at all. To all their begging to meet Mark, their mother just tells them that it's impossible now. Finally comes the day of the championship. As soon as Mark steps into the arena, he sees Jin-Ki inside. He hands his former partner a notebook with an analysis of the opponent's matches and asks for his last time trust for the last time. Mark waffles back and forth, but shakes his old friend's hand anyway. The tournament begins. The winner will take $100,000 with them, and the top 2 will represent South Korea at the World Cup. Thousands of people watch the match, including Soo-jin and her children, Jun-hyun and Jun-hee. The siblings see Mark on TV and decide that he looks very lost. Despite their mother's prohibitions, they decide to go to the arena alone, to give their uncle a medal that they've secretly taken away, and cheer him up. Problems begin to haunt Mark even during the qualifying matches. He nearly loses in the first match, but the defeat is not counted due to a violation of the rules. Besides, his arm hurts terribly. Meanwhile, Jin-Ki is difficult to refuse offer, a bribe for twice as much as the winning fund at Mark's contractual loss in the final, and half the money is given to him immediately. After Mark wins another round and progresses to the semifinals, Jin-Ki comes to him. He shows his friend a bag of money and says that this amount would solve all of their problems. All he has to do is give in to Punch in the final fight. The other things don't matter. But Mark puts his friend in his place, as he wants to prove to himself that he's worth something. It's the one thing that's important to him. And he also made a promise to the kids that he can't ignore. The semifinals with Combo are coming up. Before the fight, Mark has time to see his nephews, which gives him the strength he needs, despite the fact that the muscle man's hand fails, and the opponents have to start the fight as many as 3 times. He still gets the upper hand. Right before the final, Jin-Ki returns the money to his shrewd sponsor, but he only mocks him. Suddenly, Mark comes to his aid. He pushes all the bullies away and gives his friend a hand as a sign of reconciliation. And now begins the duel that everyone has been waiting for. Punch immediately goes in for a fierce attack and accidentally injures the opponent's thumb. They start fighting again, and Mark's powers are rapidly running out. But just at the crucial moment, when he's as close to defeat as ever, the arm wrestler spots Soo-jin in the crowd. All the warm moments they spent together flash before his eyes, and Mark puts the last of his strength on the opponent. And Mark finally becomes a champion. The crowd cheers. The loved ones with tears in their eyes embrace the winner, and he turns to the late mother with the trophy in his hand. Mark apologizes to her for coming so late, and thanks her. He finally has a new family. What would you do? Take twice as much money? Or fight the loopy thug to the end despite your severe injury? Let us know in the comments down below, and be honest. Also, subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss any new cool movie plots.